It's time to sit back and check out the RCWR show with Lee Sanders. Get fun, in-depth coverage and analysis from the latest in professional wrestling in AEW, WWE, NWA, Impact Wrestling, or the world of entertainment. From hit TV shows to your favorite sports like the NBA or NFL. All things music, movies, and beyond, while trying to make sense of this crazy world we live in. All while keeping it honest, insightful, and interactive since 2011. And now your host, live from the nation's capital of Washington, D.C., Lee Sanders.
Hey, my pretty babies, what is going on? Hardest working man in all of podcasting, at least as far as this week goes. So here we are, episode number 5 of the Mr. McMahon docuseries. We have been coming to you each consecutive night reviewing these episodes, and we are nearing the end, my friends, of this docu-series. I hope you guys have been enjoying some of my honest and brutal takeaways from this docu-series so far. I gotta be honest with you guys. As far as tell me something I did not know, if you've checked out the other reviews of this docu-series of mine, that's been the recurring theme. I went into this episode, which is conveniently titled Family Business, and I walked away from this having more appreciation for Shane McMahon than ever before. I got to tell you, and I really hope that as far as a major talking point, my other colleagues in the podcasting world will definitely join me, echo and amplify the hell out of those sentiments, because really it it touched me at the core. I gotta tell you guys. So let's do an overall recap, and then I'll pause in between to add some colorful analysis, some fun little stories and all that to this, just kind of stretch it out, make it even more interesting here. So look, by 2000, WWF, they decided they were going to go public. And this was a big deal when this news had dropped. I remember, as part of the wrestling community, I had great concerns because I wondered whether or not business would continue to remain the same in WWE. I wondered exactly, and I'm a teenager, I'm in my late teens at this point. And at this point, I'll be honest with you guys, I wasn't really that deep into the inner workings of wrestling businesses, especially as far as potential responsibilities to advertisers, sponsors, things of that nature. So to hear about WWE going public on the New York Stock Exchange, I looked at this and my main concern was, well, hopefully it's business as usual. The only thing I basically knew was, up to this point, the McMahon family and WWE, it was always a privately owned company. And that by being made public, people would be able to buy in the stock and all of that. So all I knew way back then was that there was going to be a lot of hands in the cookie jar here from a corporate level. But what that meant exactly, as far as the type of content I was seeing on my television and what the future of that content meant, everything up in the air. And a lot of my friends were thinking the same thing as me, nonetheless. So you have all that that's going on. And also at this point, you have to remember that once WWE started figuring out the winning formula for how can they not only catch up to WCW, but how can they end up kicking their ass in the long haul, WWE was finally starting to string it all together. And when they did, boy, were they off to the fucking races. So now we're at a point where things are starting to flip. And now WCW, they are starting to see their numbers tank. So one company's going up and the other one is going down to the point that by 2001, WWF would end up purchasing WCW. I remember this clear as day. This was basically the AOL Time Warner merger and all that. I remember when all of that went down. It was a black day. It was a black day. We don't need to go in depth about it, do we? Because my God, there's so much stuff that's already out there. We just recently saw to the point Dwayne the Rock Johnson and his $7 production company go over who killed WCW. Decent. I'll tell you this. There's definitely some interesting perspectives. I appreciated a lot of the talking heads that they got for that respected limited series. I definitely would recommend if you guys want to know a lot more about WCW. I would say besides watching that limited series, there is a book. Uh Matter of fact, it is called Nitro. I'm looking at the book literally right now. It's got Goldberg getting power bombed by Kevin Nash. I'm looking at the book right now. I would highly recommend you guys go out of your way and you grab that book. It's by Guy Evans. Get the expanded edition. The big difference between the expanded edition and just the regular edition, first volume, whatever that came out. The big difference is with the expanded edition, there's bonus chapters that's added. There's new content that's added. So you have with the expanded edition the most up to date information on just all things WCW and everything. And like I said, Guy Evans did a fantastic job with that book and everything. But I remember when the AOL Time Warner merger went down, it was one of the saddest days, especially if you happen to be someone that was maybe working at one of those Disney stores back in the day. Oh, the WB stores, as they like to call them. Those things were all over the place back in the day. And I don't know about you guys, but I used to love going to those damn stores, man, because I would find all kinds of really cool knickknacks. I know for a fact Tams, because she's a big Tweety fan. I know back in the day, wifey loved her some WB store, and she would go all the time. I know out here in the nation's capital of DC, we had a location that was around. It was between Judiciary Square and Union Station was where we had our WB store, which was just down the street from the ESPN restaurant. Ah, my God. If you never had the opportunity to go in a ESPN store when it was around, did you miss out? It was, and I think many people will agree with this. It was basically a combination of Dave and Buster's meets Time Arcades meets actually let's stay right there. I think that's the best combo, right? It was like that kind of a a combo, and Buffalo Wild Wings. We'll just throw it in there for the hell of it. Just think about the atmosphere, way they got things set up, and all that. That basically was the ESPN restaurant in a nutshell. If you were fortunate enough to do the WB store and the ESPN store, you had a pretty good life there. Maybe childhood, whatever. But when that Time Warner AOL deal went down, so many things ended up getting caught up in the crosshairs, getting shut down, and all that. Definitely not just those being affected, but ultimately WCW for what it was worth. Then you had Vince McMahon deciding, you know what? I want to try my hand in football. I'm going to do this whole thing with the XFL. And I remember when the XFL went down because, and I really wish they would have highlighted this just with sound bites from fans alone, because when the XFL initially was announced, myself, my friends, my family, we're all looking at this and we're going, wait, 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 wait. Vince wants to try what? And we're all remembering what happened with the bodybuilding competition and going, yeah, that didn't work out so good, my guy. Now you want to try it with your brand of football. And I still remember to this very day those initial press conferences, interviews, whatever the hell you want to call them. I still remember when Vince McMahon did his first round of those joints. To hear him basically say he doesn't know anything about football, it's like, wait a minute here. Ah, you don't know anything about football, yet you want to start up your own football league. And like the only thing that Vince McMahon was trying to convince us was, look, this is what's needed. We need rules that are simplified because as it stands with the NFL, things are too complicated as it is. We're gonna make it harder. We're gonna make it more grittier. You're gonna have access like you've never had access before to the talents, to the players, to the coaches. We're gonna give you every single nook and cranny access that is available. You're gonna see the inner workings, how maybe they get the schematics all brought up and everything. Before they started doing what's that series that they have right now on cable where each season they're following football teams? Is it called Hard Knock Life? Like before that was even going on, like I'll give Vince McMahon this much credit. He had the foresight to go, "Yeah, this is what essentially is going to sell right here, like selling these elements and all that." We knew about the 8 teams. We knew that DC was going to be one of those teams. It was like, oh, okay, cool. All right. Yeah, yeah. We can do this. Okay, sure. So we went off of this limited information for the XFL. Concept was first announced in 2000, but then I think it was maybe like several months later, maybe like a year later, because they basically did the press conference, they announced it, and basically it was get ready because it's coming. Then we go there. I remember that first week. I remember the first week of games. I remember going, wow, this is pretty cool. I like the different camera angle shots that they were giving us and all that. As far as the talent goes, I echo what was touched upon in this episode. Yeah, the talent definitely was not there, but you're looking at it, you're going, okay, now that I've seen what I've seen with the first week worth of games, this has a lot of potential. Yeah, sure. In my eyes, at least, what was ultimately the downfall of the XFL was the fact that they incorporated so much of their WWE talents into this. I don't know what their fucking obsession was, but they were so obsessed with incorporating WWE talents into the XFL. This was one of those cases where it really should have just breathed on its own. It should have had its own life. It should have, remember, this was a joint adventure between Vince McMahon and Dick Ebersol, who is like one of the NBC great executives behind the scenes and all that, right? Like every single television hall of fame that there is, Dick Ebersol needs to be put in there and everything. Remember, Dick Ebersol is the same guy when it came to Saturday night's main event. He definitely had a hand in, getting WWE action on NBC and all that. So, McMahon, Ebersol, just a 1-2 punch and everything. So you're looking at what was going on here with the XFL and just the constant cross promotion that was being done. XFL, right down to the point. Does anybody remember what freaking Jim Ross and they were calling games? A lot of people, like, the biggest misconception is that, oh, they only called one game. No, no, you had JR who was, and Jerry Lawler, you know, it was bad. I will admit to you guys, it was really, really bad. You saw promise, but it was one of those things where you said, look, unless they switch up on this, that's the only way that it'll continue to thrive. And then the caliber of talents. This wasn't like you know, your arena football or think about whatever other leagues you want to think of, USFL, think of whatever. This wasn't like any of those. So as far as trying to get access to certain talents, maybe some big name people that for whatever respective reason they got injured, they've been out for a couple of years, NFL don't want to touch them. Okay. So maybe they can get their shine on by doing something with the XFL. They really did not attract those kind of people. And the ratings after that first week, yes, I remember clear as day, plummeted, plummeted big time, big time. And I remember when it freaking was one and done. As a fan, I said, you know what? Good. Because it was struggling. No improvements were being made. Good. But never in my wildest dreams did I think that Vince McMahon would try to revive it so many years later. Right. But again, you saw some of when you were watching the XFL, that first initial run. One thing that really stood out to you was some of the camera angles that they had going on, some of the XFL rule changes as they were taking their cues from what was going on with the National Football League, and they adjusted accordingly. And look, right down to the point, NFL taking those cues and ultimately adapting a lot of those things from the failed XFL into their organization. So, there was some good things that had came from out of it and everything. One big omission from this episode is the fact that they did not touch upon Vince McMahon resurrecting the XFL. They didn't touch on that. I would have loved to have known his thought process, what led him to deciding to bring it back the next go round. um what was a major factor, but then I also would have loved to learn his thought process and, okay, well, you know what, let me step to the side and let's have some new people come in and take this thing over, because as we all know, Dwayne the Rock Johnson would ultimately step in and be the new owner of the XFL. So I would have loved to have learned the process of not just all of that, but get his thoughts on where something that he created that has now been passed on to somebody else. Well, not just somebody else, but yeah, more specifically, The Rock. I would have loved to learn his thought process on, yeah, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about Dwayne The Rock Johnson now being the new owner of the XFL? Do you like some of the steps that The Rock and his team have taken with the XFL? Any changes that you would make? Do you, knowing what you know now, would you maybe have considered keeping the XFL a little longer? And you can't help but wonder in regards to the XFL, all things considered, the fact that ultimately Vince McMahon kicked out of his own company. It's one of those, wow, how about that XFL right about now? Wouldn't you like to just be focusing on your resources and all on that right about now so you can stay distracted from, these Janelle Grant lawsuits and all this other stuff? You just can't help but as a fan, as you're watching this episode, have all of that play out in the back of your mind here. But just, man, mind blowing that they did not follow up in regards to the XFL. You got the impression XFL was one and done. It didn't come back. To my point, episode 6, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, to the point, episode 6, XFL resurrection and all that wasn't even brought up in the final episode. Something to think about. Just something to think about. So, and then, of course, the mighty lawsuit that WWE lost to the World Wildlife Fund over the use of WWF. Now, they didn't go into great detail about that, but it was great to hear Vince comment on the fact that this fucking sucked. For the record, I did not want to change the name. I tried to fight this with every fiber in my being. So it was nice to hear him say that, because there was just that part of me that always felt for the longest time, well, he's all about entertainment anyway, so get the F out, whatever. And almost to the point, okay, World Wrestling Federation, well, we're all about entertainment anyway, so partially right, I was in that area, but no, it was very pleasing to the ears to hear Vince McMahon say, I tried to fight it. I fought it as long and hard as I could. Now, they didn't go into the inner workings here, but here was the agreement that was made. I want to make sure we really get this set in stone. I don't hear a lot of people talking about this either, right? So, the arrangement that World Wildlife Fund had with WWF, it was basically, okay, you guys want to go around, you want to call yourselves the WWF. We know what WWF means, but you want to keep abbreviating it and you want to be known as the WWF. Okay, here's the thing. You can use it in the United States. You can use it within the United States, no problem. But when you start using it internationally, well, that's definitely going to be a problem. Layman's terms, WWF, Vince McMahon, are we going to have a problem? Vince McMahon and them going, no, there's not going to be any problem whatsoever. These are the terms. Okay, yeah, sure, bet, no problem. The more popular that WWF, World Wrestling Federation, was becoming, the more that eventually, you remember the scene from Scarface where Tony Montana says to Homeboy, yo, we got to expand. We got to think about the future. And with that future, we got to grow. We got to expand. We got to take on Chicago. We got to take on New York. We got to take on New Jersey, Philly, and then Frank's like, whoa, 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 whoa. So eventually, WWF, when they were really starting to catch fire, this was a case where they were starting to do more stuff overseas. And that was pretty much a big no-no for the World Wildlife Federation that they basically cried foul. Hey, as far as your usage, like, no, you you violated it, so we'll see you in court. That pretty much was the whole thing. But there was limited restrictions that they had. A lot of people are led to the impression that, oh, well, in regards to marketing, toys, video games, movies. No, uh, that actually they were fine in regards to that to a degree. They were fine. It was mainly international stuff. That's when it was really kind of crossing the line here and all that. So they they lost that. The whole slogan, "Get the F out." I loved it back in the day. I loved their whole slogan back in the day. It was nice. Interesting period of time for the WWE. I did not really realize this until they highlighted it on this episode, which is the fact that we got to a point where Steve Austin and Dwayne The Rock Johnson were gone. I totally, I don't know why, but I blanked out on that. And so here, normally you'd have a case where, okay, well, if you lose one guy, you got this other person. You guys will be great, especially as far as transitioning, trying to bring up other stars. But I really need for people to truly wrap their heads around this. This was a time here where, again, your top two marquee guys, these are the faces of your freaking company at this point. When you think of WWF/E, these are the two guys that you're thinking about. You're not thinking about really anybody else. They both are no longer at play. All right. Now what are you going to do? Now what are you going to do? And I tell you what, to WWE's credit, they relied a great deal during that time. They relied a great deal on guys like yeah, I know John Cena was on the rise and everything, but they relied a great deal on Eddie Guerrero, Triple H for sure, Chris Benoit. They relied on. There's two names that's escaping me right now. Definitely the Undertaker. They relied on him a lot more. I would have to look at the roster list from back then to really zone in on the names. But they had certain guys that they were. But as far as these are the heads that's carrying our company right now, right? They didn't have those two guys anymore. So it literally was okay, next man up. Don't even mention Kurt Angle. Sadly, Kurt Angle, Kurt Angle eventually would butt heads with Vance. And as we all know, rest was history. But Kurt was still doing some pretty solid stuff back then. You still had him at play as well to a certain degree. But that's where the company was, the whole ruthless aggression era, which basically saw the rise of John Cena and everything. So some interesting stuff in between all of that. It's kind of nice going down memory lane. I'm still thinking about that first time we were introduced to John Cena through Kurt Angle, the whole match. Now, the one thing that I did not know, as Kurt Angle had shed light on it, apparently, originally, he was supposed to be facing The Undertaker, but for whatever respective reason, Undertaker was not available. Cue up John Cena. John Cena gets the opportunity, and the rest is history. Also, I did not know in regards to the John Cena prototype gimmick. That's what we called it back in the day when he was just running around with trunks and had the wristbands and knee pads. And yeah, he just looked like your typical. Is he kind of using steroids? I'm not really sure, kind of guy, but there was no personality as far as the move set goes. Nothing to be desired, honestly. And yeah, he looked like, look, don't get me wrong. You looked at him and you honestly said, okay, he's got a great looking face, he's got a good looking body, but personality wise, nothing is there. He was not connecting to the crowd whatsoever. Just looked like somebody that probably, most likely, would be on the chopping block real soon. Or as a lot of people like to say, oh, they're the next Maven. It's kind of a diss, when you would say it like that back in the day. Who would have thought that the bus. Now, see, here's the thing. I always knew about Cena being on a bus and he'd be rapping, or sometimes he'd be on an airplane and he'd be rapping. One of the referees used to be actually, I think it was Brian Hepner. I think Brian Hepner is the son of Earl Hepner. Yes, guys? But whoever is the son's name for Earl Hepner, son of Earl Hepner, he would be a beatbox. He could actually do a really good beatbox, and Cena would do some rhymes and all that. Now, I did not know that on one fateful day, Stephanie McMahon would just so happen to be on a tour bus, or and she's hearing John Cena doing this thing. She's realizing there's some money to be made, and pretty much the rest is history. So you can almost say that to a degree, well, two things you can say when I think about it. One, Stephanie McMahon saved John Cena. And then two, you can say that as far as the doctor of thugonomics go, what would eventually become the John Cena we would come to know and love and everything, you can make an argument that we have Stephanie McMahon to credit for all of that. How do you guys feel about that? Sound off, but very interesting. I thought that part was cool. All the other stuff in between, if anything, I'm just going, man, this got omitted, this got omitted, this got omitted. Can we maybe bring this up to kind of make up for now? What was the saving grace out of this episode? And I think many of my friends and colleagues in the podcasting world will agree with me on this. Of this entire 6 episode docu-series, the one highlight, the one, tell me something I don't know. What was going on with Shane McMahon and Vince McMahon? Why, during that particular period of time when Shane McMahon rolled out of the WWE, what was going on there? We heard all these rumblings. We heard these rumors that, Shane McMahon, really bad fallout with Vince McMahon. Like, what the hell's going on here? And of course, Shane McMahon ultimately leaving the WWE in 2009 to pursue his own ventures, if you want to call it that. And that annoyed us when all of that had went down. Because understand something, this wasn't a case where back in the day when it all went down, breaking news, Shane McMahon fired from, no, breaking news, Shane McMahon released from WWE. No, it was just one day, Shane not there in WWE. You realize, okay, it's been 3 months now. It's been 6 months. It's been a year. People really started noticing after about 2 years. Hey, what is going on with Shane here? Why isn't Shane in WWE? What gives here? And we could not get a definitive answer for nothing. Could not get a definitive answer for nothing. There was rumors, little quiet hush rumors, but nothing really substantially concrete as far as what was going on. My heart ached for Shane. because here was a son that wanted to do nothing more than please his father. He wanted to learn everything about the business. He eat, he slept, he breathed the business. Talked all things business with his dad. But at the same time, there was also that great humility about Shane McMahon. And I know that Booker T on this episode, he said something along the lines of, hey, when it comes to Stephanie McMahon, make no mistake about it, you know that she is the boss. You know that she is not one to be playing with. Shane is too nice. And as a result of that, when you're too nice, people take advantage of you. It's kind of ironic to hear that because there have been quite a few AEW wrestlers that have said Tony Khan is a nice guy, too nice, needs to be careful, don't need to be taken advantage of. And now we see this new photo that's floating around of Shane McMahon and the Young Bucks, and you can't help but wonder what's going on here. And truly, can Shane and Tony Khan be on the same page, get along as business partners? And I'll tell you what, only time will tell. We'll just have to wait and see and everything. But all Shane McMahon wanted to do was please his father, make his father proud. And as Vince is getting older, Shane is legit going, it's about that time. It's about that time to consider the changing of the guard, Dad. It's about that time to, hey, I'm the heir apparent here. I'm the future heir. Vince, on the other hand, doesn't plan on slowing down anytime soon. Hearing Paul Heyman recall it, you can't help but wonder if that was the tipping point. What Paul Heyman described there, of one night, there was just this little started off as a conversation between Shane and Vince going over some creative idea. There was something that Shane was really, really passionate about. And I really wish the producers would have asked him, this creative thing that you were thinking about, are you able to talk about it? Did it ever come to fruition? What happened? I wish we could have learned more about what that idea was, just so that could have the fans online talking about whether or not that would have been a good idea or not. But this was obviously something that Shane McMahon was very, very passionate about. That Vince McMahon said, no, not happening. And Shane was hell bent. He really thought this idea was something that they had to. They had to do this. Vince ultimately saying the only way you pretty much are gonna make this happen is over my dead body. So hands him a knife, tells him to stab him in the chest, make it happen. One actually pulls his man card. You man enough. You serious about it. You really want this. If you man enough, take it. You got the balls? If you got the balls, you'll do this. And pretty much letting Shane McMahon know, because it's that type of fortitude. It's that right there, what you're going to have to bring to the table in order to surpass me, to have this business, and to even go in the direction of Vince Sr., where Vince says to Shane, you can buy me out just like my dad did. And Shane did not rise to the occasion. Well, thank God he didn't, as far as the knife stab and all of that. And I guess it's safe to say that monetary wise, Shane did not have the necessary money to buy out Vince. Well, look, even if he would have had the money, and I really wish they would have, and they didn't. They didn't go to Shane to, hey, this conversation that happened between you and your dad that ultimately led to a heated argument. Was this ultimately what had you go, you know what, I just need a break. I need to roll out here because this is just become too toxic here. Like what the hell? So think about that. Think about that. And then the other thing that you got to think about as well is the fact that Shane McMahon saw a great opportunity to buy the UFC. He felt that as far as looking at the future goes and all of that. You know what that reminded me of, boys and girls? That reminded me of the scene from 1976's Rocky. Remember the scene where Apollo Creed is with his handlers and the boxing promoter, and they're going over logistics, promoting sales, and all that. And freaking Apollo Creed's assistant, his right hand man, bald head guy with the mustache, he's chilling in a recliner. He's watching the TV and he's seeing Balboa being interviewed and how he's going about boxing. He's boxing meat. Right? That's how he's getting ready with his training. He is beating the crap out of meat. And dude says to Apollo, yo, champ, you might want to come watch this boy you getting ready to fight. Come watch your man. Cause look like he mean business. And Apollo totally dismisses him. Yeah, I mean business too. Sure, we got any more coffee? Right away. And he's looking back like, I'm trying to give you a heads up here because I got a bad feeling here. Yeah. That's how I kind of felt in hearing about this whole Shane McMahon. Hey, Dad, you got to buy UFC. Shane definitely had the hindsight here. He was able to look down the road. Now, something else I really wish the producers would have been able to talk to him about here. Did you feel, Shane, that if you didn't get on top of buying the UFC, that, did you honestly feel that maybe, or did you get the impression that maybe these guys could maybe somehow come back to be a serious competitor slash alternative to what you guys do? Like, I really would have loved to learn more on his thought process and what exactly he was seeing with the UFC. No doubt about it. At that time that he was looking at them, it was definitely, hey, this is kind of not necessarily cutting edge, but this is definitely something that I don't see going away no time soon. This is something that's going to be around 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now. This is going to continue on. So the fact that Shane McMahon presented this, Vince McMahon not liking the idea, wanted to focus more on creating characters, could not see the similarities between the UFC and the WWE. And okay, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Yeah, let's go ahead and let's expand the portfolio here. Let's go ahead and do this. Shooting that whole thing down. Vince doubting the UFC, doubting their success, all of that definitely would imply a huge implication that Shane doesn't know what the heck he's talking about. He doesn't have that right savvy business acumen, so to speak, and everything. And yeah, so Shane tried pushing his father out of the WWE, unsuccessful. Tried this whole thing with the UFC, Not happening. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but that shit probably would put me over at a tipping point where I go, yeah, it's time for me to bounce because it's become too toxic and it's pretty obvious that I'm not going to be made the man. I'm just going to continue to be in my parents' shadow. And, not to talk TV shows, but if you guys are watching or have been watching Power Ghosts, you know, Tariq St. Patrick, he's constantly been in his father's shadow, making the same moves, but being pretty reckless about it. At least with James St. Patrick slash Ghost, at least he was always moves ahead. Tariq is just being reckless. He's just thinking one move. He thinks he's thinking a couple of moves ahead, but he's really not. But just look at that whole dynamic with Monet and the rest of the kids of the Tejada family, and how you have Drew that's trying so hard to be his own man. You got Kane. Kane feels as though he should be the one that's running the Tejada empire and all that, but Monet isn't exactly doing the right thing and stepping to the side and letting the kids take care of the business because, god damn it, she's still alive. She can still get results. So she wants to hold on to the crown a little longer. You get that built up resentment and all of that, right? So interesting parallels. That's all I'm doing is the parallels, connecting the parallels here for you guys. So Shane branching off. I know that there was a period in time, and I love talking about Shane. If you ever want to get me talking about Shane McMahon and you're a Shane McMahon fan, you can bring up a Shane McMahon match or, yeah, hey, what's your favorite Shane McMahon moment? Or I will talk Shane like not forever, but I will talk Shane for several minutes. I love Shane. It's funny because Shane was actually born out here in the DC metropolitan region. I love that. Right down to the point, the hospital where he was born. I actually have a friend or two that work at that hospital. No, they were not there when Shane McMahon was born and all that, but I have a friend or two that actually work at that hospital. So it's funny how, and usually these past couple of XFL seasons, at least when it comes to the DC Defenders, Shane McMahon has actually been here for a few of their games, and I think he still has family ties here to the nation's capital. So it's always nice to see, when they come back here and all that. But I know Shane McMahon ended up working with a company overseas, and it basically had to do with video on demand type of content. There was like a China broadband company is what I'm looking at because he ended up becoming the CEO for that company. Basically cable broadband services in a nutshell. But they were also looking at the digital side of it as well, from what I remember. Video on demand service as well. He stepped down as the CEO a few years later. From what I vaguely remember, the numbers, it just wasn't really doing that well. I wonder if that company is even still around. If you bear with me a second here, I might be able to find out for you because I know he was the CEO for You On Demand. So I don't know if those guys are still around. Let's see if they are. Let's see. I'm looking at news. And I'm looking at the first thing that I see here, and it kind of looks like they're still at it. The You on demand, it looks like they're still at it. Let me see here. No, no, I think they might be because the link I'm looking at, this goes back to 2017. 14 here. They might be defunct now. I was about to say defuck. I was like, well, yeah, that might be right, brother. No, I think they might be. Hang on here. I see something from 2015. Let me try one more thing because now I'm curious. I'm curious if these guys are even still in business here. Yeah, I thought so. I just wasn't sure. Yeah, it looks like they're out of business. Looks like they're out of business. So it lasted for as long as it did. And that really was it as far as Shane McMahon. You really didn't hear anything else about him after this company. I mean, you heard him having a couple of different hats with some other organization groups, financial groups, but other than that, you really did not hear anything else until we finally had saw Shane come back to the WWE and everything. And that was definitely a great moment in wrestling history. I never popped so hard in my entire life. There are moments, and then there are moments that you'll remember for the rest of your life. Shane McMahon coming back to the WWE was the latter. So happy to see that guy back. It almost felt like hell froze over and everything that led up to some of those first couple of WrestleMania matches that Shane had did. That's the one thing that no matter what, if you grew up watching Shane McMahon back in the day, that's the one thing that you always appreciated with Shane is the fact that Shane always went not just above, but he went beyond. He went beyond to put on an entertaining match. He went beyond to show that he can not only hang with the boys, but that he definitely was deserving of being in the ring across from some of these great performers. And I tell you what, to see Shane McMahon finally get that pat on the back from his dad. Because what was that? The Shane versus Taker, right? To see, and I remember how all that had played out because if I remember it correctly, the stipulation and all that was at stake. Shane goes in, he wins, he pretty much becomes the Raw general manager. He loses, poof, he's gone. Like that's it for him. Hit the bricks, pal. Never resurface again. Go back under the rock you climbed from under. But Shane lost. And then when you went to the next episode of Monday Night Raw, you're like, oh man, what does the future hold? What's going to happen with Shane? What's going to happen with Shane? And the fact that what we thought was going to happen initially, Vince McMahon goes, all right, you're the new manager for Monday Night Raw, but I'm going to be watching you very, very closely to see how you do. And he pretty much was like, and when you fail, and you will, I'll be right there. Yeah, it's kind of one of those type of deals. But that match that he had with Taker, just all those years removed, Shane still has it. Just and for Shane to get emotionally choked up there. And you could see it too. I'm glad they showed a little bit of that footage to show Vince even getting a little bit choked up and all of that. Yeah, I bet that did mean a lot to Shane because it's like everybody's got their own wrestling terminology wise. Everybody has their own chasing of the dragon. In Shane's case, it was his father's respect, his father's love. Guys, that strikes me at my core because you're looking at this docu-series. You remember essentially how Vince Sr. treated Vince. And so, as we're growing up, heaven forbid we're in a position where we get a messed up parent that isn't raising us right, they're treating us like shit. If we have the right mindset, we're going, okay, when I get ready to have my kids, if I'm fortunate to, I'm never going to treat them in this fashion. I'm never going to do them the way dad and mom treated me. Not to get too personal, but I remember growing up, my mom treated me a particular way, and I didn't like it. I damn sure didn't like it when alcohol would be involved because it would be much worse. And I remember one of the last conversations I had with her, I said, I hope that if I ever become a parent, I never fucking treat my children the way you've treated me because it's just wrong. I teared up at that Shane McMahon scene. I lost it. I gotta be honest with you guys. I lost it. That struck me. I totally, and I think there's a lot of us out there, whether you're 17, 24, 50 years old, or hell, damn near 60. You can't tell me you were able to walk away from that and not feeling choked up and all that. Just understanding not only what Shane was going through, but to finally get that little bit of a, god damn, it's about time you finally gave me that thing I've been wanting to hear for so long. Loved it. I loved it. I want to take a quote here from Shane because I really want to set this up properly. So when Shane, made his return, all that other good stuff, and he was able to see that Stephanie getting pretty emotional, Vince getting pretty emotional as well. Shane saying, quote unquote, it was so rewarding to have an adulation that long and that loud when you return to something you love. I see my dad looking at me and he has pride. I can see it in his eyes. Now I'm getting choked up looking at that. My sister, she's starting to tear up because again, we're all back together. It was a huge moment. And it was, but earning Vince's respect after WrestleMania 32, seeing all that stuff and how it played up, um, that definitely was very, very freaking powerful. Nice long embrace. You just see the way Shane interacts with his sons. You really get the impression that Shane is trying to do everything he can to make sure that whatever that cycle was between Vince Sr. and Vince, he breaks that cycle. Let's go back to a thing that I always talk about here on the show. Everything is a choice, especially with how you treat people. As I like to say, if anything, treat people the way you want to be treated. I would think with respect. So to see Shane and the way he treats his kids, he's really trying to do his best to break the hell out of whatever that cycle is, and more power to him. You just can't help at the same time wonder with all this shit that's been going on with these allegations, how much Shane knew, if he knew, and when he knew, to doing his absolute very best to, yeah, man, keep that shit as far away from me as possible here because I don't want to have anything to do with this. But really, as far as going back to my favorite statement, tell me something I don't know. Great groundwork that they covered here towards the end, I would say, in talking about Shane. Really, really good stuff that they did here. I did enjoy having a nice hearty chuckle, by the way, just kind of lighten the mood up a little bit. I did have a nice hearty chuckle as Stephanie McMahon was going over that whole incest story joint. Very consistent. I will say that everybody that's commented on that whole thing, very consistent with what was said on the Vince McMahon doc. Even with the whole Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, let's actually air their wedding on pay-per-view. All that was covered on the Vince McMahon documentary as well. So if you are a fan of wrestling DVDs, you want something to check out in the next couple of days, check that out. You'll thank me later. So this pretty much sets up episode 6, the finale to this docu-series. And boy, I tell you what, I find it kind of interesting how they opened that up. Yeah. The 3 things that's on Vince McMahon's mind. What am I going to have for dinner? Am I going to have some Lito's pizza? Or am I going to have a Nathan's hot dog? And then you got the other brain that's basically, I guess thinking business or whatever. Hey, I got to make sure I fill out that KY jelly 95 form or whatever. And then that third part, my mind is telling me no, but my body, you know I mean, what the fuck. I can't wait to talk about that one, because we're going to put a nice, tight little, pretty little ribbon around all of this, which leads me to the next point here. I'm going to put a poll up within the next, you know what? I'm going to try to see if I can get it up right now for you guys. It's going to be a poll, but more so, I want to get you guys comments here. And the way that we'll do this, because I want to try to incorporate this on the finale if we can. So if you guys go over to youtube.com/the RCWR show, you're gonna see a post. And what I'm gonna ask you guys is quite simple. I'm gonna ask you guys, what would you have liked to seen be covered in the Vince docu series? Comment below. Okay. That's now live. So go to youtube.com/the RCWR show. Click on the post section and you're going to see it. Again, what would you have liked to see be covered in the Vince docu-series? Comment below. So this will be your opportunity, and hopefully, depending on the volume of the comments that we get, either 2 things is going to happen. Either I'll have enough, and I'm going to post the same question throughout social media as well. Either we'll have enough where I'll be able to spend a couple of minutes going over, what you guys are thinking and all that, what you like to have seen happen. Or if we don't have enough to really, okay, we can spend a few minutes, then we're going to forward it to next weekend's Wrestling with the Topics. For those of you that had joined me earlier in the day, me and Tams, we talked a little bit about the Vince docu-series because we had her review one of the episodes. She ended up seeing just one so far. She ended up seeing the screw job episode. So next weekend, we're going to have her spend about, maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes at most, getting her experience overall in the docu-series, stuff that stands out to her. And then we'll do a nice segue going into you guys' comments on what you'd like to have seen for the docu-series. So we're going to do it one way or another. We'll either start talking a little bit about it with Monday's wrap up, and or follow up conclude on next weekend's Wrestling with the Topics. By the way, appreciate you guys that continue to cast your votes here. If you have not let your voice be heard, let it be heard. There's a poll that's right up under that new joint on YouTube, wanting to know what should we do with the docuseries once we have it all wrapped up. And I see right now 75% of you want for it to be put out there in one big omnibus, one big volume. So we're definitely going to do that for you guys later on in the week so you guys can kick back and enjoy that for all it's worth, right? But this was fun. I had a lot of fun going over this as far as what I might potentially do next. I don't know. I got to be honest. There's a big part of me that's thinking about coming on live maybe like an hour after the final episode of Power Ghost has dropped, just to give my thoughts on the overall series finale, the series in general, what I potentially think could be next in the pipeline. I mean, I am eagerly anticipating how this is gonna end. Like my head is just going in so many directions. Like, is the Tariq St. Patrick character gonna get killed off? Is he gonna somehow ride into the sunset? Is he gonna end up getting arrested? Like, I don't know what the hell is gonna happen to this kid. I really don't. But I think we'll probably end up doing something. So what would that? That would be they drop episodes on Fridays. So I think typically they drop episodes midnight on the East Coast. They don't pull a Netflix or a Prime Video where you gotta wait until 3 a.m. on so that would be 3 a.m. on the East Coast, 12 a.m. Pacific. I don't think they do no weird shit like that. I think they legit 12 a.m. Eastern, boom, new episode. And then I guess West Coast. I don't know how West Coast rolls, but we'll figure it. We'll figure it out. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be doing a series finale of Power Ghost for sure. For sure. All right. So in the meantime, be kind, rewind. I cannot stress it enough. If you guys been appreciating these Vince McMahon reviews, if you have not done so, share them, like them. Shout out to my people on YouTube. Like them because the more likes, even leave comments. You can leave comments on each of these episodes. Let me know your thoughts. I'll show you love on the next episode. I promise. You leave a comment, I am reading it. I'm getting in the habit of at least giving a reaction if I'm a little too tired to type it out. But I always on top of giving you a little heart emoji or a thumbs up on your comment. I always do my best to forward them to the next episode to sound off. So don't think that when you comment, it's being ignored because it's not. But let me know what you've been thinking about the docu series so far. Has it been a hit? Has it been a miss? Why? Why not? All that other good stuff. Let your voice be heard on the poll. Speaking of show programming, so the finale for Mr. McMahon, the docu series, we're going to be coming on live Monday. That's going to be another double whammy. I'm looking forward to that. Being sarcastic, but it's all good. Episode 6, Mr. McMahon series finale, Monday night, 5 p.m. Eastern. 5 p.m. Eastern. And then afterwards, later on in the night, once Raw is off the air, join me live throughout social media. We'll talk Raw Fallout, all that good stuff, latest in headlines. You know how we do it. It's going to be good. Going to be some good stuff. Get at your man all throughout social media. Use the keywords, the RCWR show. And until next go round, my pretty babies, wishing all of you all to be safe. And most importantly, be kind to one another. I will see you guys next go round. Adios, y'all, and take care.